This viewer is making a request that I've received variations of before. This one is, I'm wondering about a water puddle in a driveway where maybe not so much color's coming through. This person says it's difficult for me to read the color and value in the puddle to make it look wet. Well, making it look wet or trying to make it look wet, I think that might be your problem. A lot of times we're trying to make something look a certain way, and we're not able to do that because we're really not looking at it in the right way. In other words, we're not looking for information that will give us that effect. So there are certain things that we look for that can make a surface look wet or make water look wet. And one of those, I have a sample of a water puddle right here. Now, first of all, we know water acts like a mirror. A puddle of water will act like a mirror. And if you take a hand mirror and lay it flat on the ground, then you'll see that it's reflecting whatever is above it. So what's in that mirror is what you need to observe, not the idea that it is water or a puddle. You see what I'm talking about? So what are we observing here in this one? We can see that this really is an upside down photo of whatever's above it. So we can see here we have the reflection. We know there are trees there, so we can see that here, which is totally different from what we would be doing if we were creating the road or the driveway or whatever it is. And we can see upside down also that there's some sky reflecting in there. So the idea is look for what you're seeing inside here, and then describe it according to value, the value difference. What's the difference in this value as compared to here? What is the difference in this value as compared to here? Now, that person said that she had trouble distinguishing value. So I thought it might be a good idea to take a little study I had already done and show you how I would put a water puddle right in the middle here that's reflecting what's above. So first of all, I'll just take a little bit. This is a pastel pencil, and I'll just do a little area where I would be drawing, where I would draw where a puddle might be. We know that puddles can be all different shapes, and so we'll just do it that way. Could be anything. Now, what are we observing? What do we see here that we can apply to how we do it here? That's really a good way to practice doing anything. Observe something instead of trying to copy what you're looking at. Observe what it's made of. So what are we looking for there? We're looking for what's here to be an upside down image or a mirror image of what's here. So what that means then is most likely what's here is going to also be in the same value in the color of what we see there. So that's where we can begin. So let's start with what we can see here. This feels like a little bit of cloudy sky coming through. And so the first thing to do now for getting the value and the color is to be sure if you're painting from scratch, as when you're painting that sky in, go ahead and reflect that color in the puddle. So I'm going to do it backwards here. I'm going to create the color that I'm seeing here and show you how I do that. And so we can see the color feels sort of blue, so I'll pull a little bit of blue here. And we can see that it is the value of that color's sort of middle value. So what I'll need to do is to raise that value of the blue. Always adjust the value first when you are working for a color. And let's see, Okay, that's still too dark, so I would adjust it a little bit more by adding the white into the blue. And this now, I'm doing this because the request of the person said I have trouble seeing the values. Values are a relationship. Values are related to each other. And if you get that relationship, then you've got it. That's just it. Or let's say part of a relationship of value is how dark or how light it is. And so that's why it's a good idea when you're trying to go for a color you're looking at to, for whatever reason, to value correct, what I call value correct. In other words, start with a color that seems to be in the range and then either raise or lower the value of that color depending on what your goal is. So we're trying to aim for that. And you see I have that pretty much the same value, but it's not the right blue. So what it's a blue that's more neutral and seems to have a little bit more green in it. So I have here on my palette the colors that I used, or the basic palette that I used for creating this little study. I used the yellow green, that is the sap green, and this is the darkest version. This is the middle value of that that I created by adding the yellow into it. And then this is the light version that I created by taking this and adding white into it. So I have 3 values of that yellow green, and that enables me then to have a better organization of color when I'm aiming for color. So if I'm in the middle value range, I know I can work right in this area here. Okay, now this line is for the complement of yellow-green. This is yellow-green and this is red-violet, which is a complement yellow-green. That enables me to then to adjust the saturation of that. Now, all that's just information about how to use color. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to mix. I'm going right up in here, and I'm going to pull down the middle value of the yellow green, and I'm going to decrease the saturation. Now I'm going to get that more neutral. So you see if I add the red violet into yellow green, see what happens here. It desaturates, and that makes it more neutral. So I can use, and I keep it leaning a little bit more towards green, and hold that up here. Now see, that really is very close to what we're looking at in there. So I can now add that into the blue. Now, the process I went through was to find a neutral, and almost any neutral would do, but I just found the neutral, the 2 colors I'm using here, and then add it to that. Now let's see what happens. Or you see that's a little bit too green, so we can read into, when it's too green, we'll reach into the red violet, and let's see what this will do. Not too much, don't want to overdo that. So this is getting the color and the value, and I'm almost there. Just a little bit more of that red violet into it, and it's very, very close. Pull just a little bit more. It had more red violet in it than I realized when I first started mixing. So that's what I mean by relationship. The colors in the, there you go. See right there, I'm right on it now. I just used the logic of mixing color there. If you know what your colors are, you know what your hues are, and you know what the complements are, and you know how to change the values, you can come up with any color you want. So what's the next step there? Then the next step is, now I've got the sky color reflected into here. So I'm going to put some of that on my brush. I'm going to move right in here. Now what stroke do I use? I'm going to use just a downward stroke, because the water tends to, smooth water tends to call for a downward stroke, that so that you don't have a stroke that's moving as if it's 3-dimensional. It's a flat surface. So I'm just going to I'll put a little bit right here, and we will just let that allow that a little bit of that to be there, and maybe I have a little bit of that sky And this is sort of just a guessing game as to where sky would actually be showing through. Now, what else is reflecting? And when we're reflecting straight down like we are here, it's kind of a guessing game unless we're there. But what else is reflecting are these greens that we're seeing in here. And so now I can begin to move into those greens, and I can see that some of the greens are darker. So let's do that. Let's just take a middle value of the yellow green. It's yellow green. Make it darker. Now, again, compare the value. And this is important to compare the value of what you have here before you put it here, because this is reflecting what's there. And not only the value, but that there's the right value, but I'm seeing it seems a little bit too saturated. So now that's why the red violet is there. Let's just put a little bit of that in there. Now this concept may be new to some of you, but I think you find that it works every time to do it this way. All right, now then let's just put some of that in there. We kind of mix that a little bit, and we'll put a little bit more in here. Let's now begin to add a little bit more of the yellow green to that, because we see that yellow green, the lighter of the yellow green where the light's hitting, we see that sort of reflecting too. And so what we're doing in essence here then is we're doing an upside down image of what we're seeing up there. And so that's it's just sort of repeating the same process over and over again. And as I said before, we're sort of guessing at what needs to go there, because it's going to be straight ahead. So I'm going to make this very, very dark right here. And let's get that very, very dark green right there. And we'll put some of that, because we have some of that very, very dark right in here. Let that sort of reflect. I'm going to lose that sky if I'm not careful. So let's just keep adding that in. Get that. Now one thing that needs to happen there is that needs to show as being totally different from whatever is surrounding it. So we will do that. And I'm going to have to pull more of that sky in there. I'll go back to do that now. More of the sky color. And let's see, let's let that reflect right in here. Let's let it reflect in right here on the edges too. Sort of like that, and just get it sort of mushed up. I think maybe it might be just a little bit, the green may be a little bit intense there. Let's get the sky reflecting just a little bit more. Now there's another characteristic that happens around a puddle that is also a part of what we can do to make it look like a puddle. And that is, if you'll notice, there is an edge of light. We usually see an edge of light, not necessarily all the way around the puddle, but we'll see an edge that is a little bit lighter because of the light that's reflecting on there. So let's do just a little bit of that. It's not very light, but it's enough so that we can see it. So we'll just sort of put a little bit of an edge of light in there. Around that edge, and I'm going to just sort of that you can see there that edge of light it's not a straight edge. It's kind of a ragged edge. It's sort of because the edge of a puddle is probably going to be more of a ragged edge, and so now on the back side we might see the same sort of little edge of light there. Get that just a little bit more here, like that. And let's see. Maybe I can add just a little bit more of the, oh, I know what, it might be a good idea to reflect just a little bit of a limb or a tree trunk. Let's get a different brush here for that. And let's just see if we can just sort of let, we want to try to do exactly what we see up there, because we probably wouldn't see that, but we might see a limb coming across or something like that. and we begin to see. It begins to feel a little bit like a reflection of water. Now, if I'm going to take another brush here. I'm going to give that very, very gentle downward stroke, just like that. And that begins to sort of smear the image enough so that it begins to feel more like a reflection, sort of like we would see a reflection, because the reflections, unless the water is absolutely still, the reflections are slightly blended there. And usually that downward stroke is going to slightly blend the reflection. So I think you can see that you can, just by matching the colors and the values that you see within the landscape or whatever you're working with, and so you're sort of building a secondary little picture within the whole scene where you're just taking a hunk out of the landscape. So you can use the same colors and values that you see in the landscape, kind of reflect those and give it a little bit of a blend. And I think you'll find that that may be a fun exercise for teaching you how to observe puddles of water and create puddles of water. Be sure and view all of our quick tips. And while you're doing so, subscribe to the channel, click on the bell so you'll always get a notice when we produce a new quick tip, which is every week. And if you have a question, leave it in the comments section and we'll make a quick tip for you. Also, take a trip over to DianeMize.com where I have full-length lessons, downloads, DVDs, lots of other stuff there, some free stuff for you. And while you're there, you can subscribe to the newsletter, and that way you'll always be informed every time we do something new.